Smoking, chiefing a cig, lighting up a
British slang for cigarette.
burning a dart, a habit that 1 in 7 people worldwide partake in every single day. Usually on the toilet after downing a hot cup of coffee, or if you're a zoomer, a cold can of Monster. Indeed, smoking has been a part of human society for hundreds of years. And this little large leaf plant has significantly altered the course of human history and our way of life. But arguably, its effects have had the largest impact in no other place than hell's backyard, the Balkans. Indeed, cigarettes and tobacco-based products have played an enormous role in the shaping of this region. Yet, little is known today about the origins of tobacco in the Balkans and its rise to stardom. So get yourself something to eat if you haven't already, make yourself comfy, and come with me on a journey to explore the magical world of tobacco and how it conquered the lands God even fears to step into. Today, cigarettes and tobacco-based products can be found all across the world, from the corner shops in Kathmandu to the bustling public squares of New York. However, for the vast majority of human history, this was far from the case. The earliest records of tobacco consumption date all the way back between 5000 to 3000 BC in Mesoamerica, where the native peoples used the plant for religious and medical purposes. And for a great chunk of time, its use was limited to the Americas and specifically rituals to get in touch with the spirit world. However, this all would come to change when in the late 15th century, the Europeans discovered the Americas and made initial contact with the native inhabitants. In an effort to make a good impression, the Native Americans gifted fruit, food, weapons, and tobacco leaves to the explorers. But as they thought the leaves weren't edible or useful in any sort of way, they threw them overboard. However, as the two interacted more, the Europeans quickly realized the value of the plant by observing the natives chiefing a big fat one. Impressed by their lung capacity, the smooth bitter taste, and playful tingling sensation caused by inhaling the smoke from the plant, the Spanish explorers became infatuated with tobacco and hurried to bring it back to Europe with them. And with that, by the end of the 16th century, tobacco popped its head in practically every single European country. At the same time as tobacco was becoming the hot new commodity across the White Devil continent, within the Ottoman realm, another plant was also achieving great popularity amongst the masses: coffee. As drinking this bitter energizer became the hottest new thing in town, the people living in the Ottoman Empire started to think, what's better than drinking coffee? Drinking coffee with friends. So coffee houses, known colloquially as kahvehane, started to spread like wildfire, being built virtually in every town and busy roads, catering to regular folk and tired traders looking for a tasty pick-me-up. The humble kahvehane became especially popular in the Balkans. By the end of the 18th century, Belgrade had around 20 coffee houses, whilst the Great Fire of Sarajevo in 1788, over 50 to 60 kahvehanes were burnt down. So it's safe to say that the hot beverage and social hangouts where it was drunk became extremely culturally significant. Today, the Serbo-Croatian word for a tavern/bar, kafana, actually originates from the kahvehane. At the same time, coffee culture and coffee houses also started to become popular within Western Europe. However, there was a great difference between the two. In the West, they were exclusively seen as a hangout for the wealthy and the local nobility, whilst in the Balkans, everyone was welcome. As long as you were the right religion, that is. And as coffee house culture in the Balkans found a foothold, so did tobacco find its own home within the kahvehane. Now, if I may, I'd like to ask the smokers watching this video a question. What are the two best things in the whole wide world to start off your morning? I'm not even gonna give you any time to think because the answer is way too obvious. A cigarette and a cup of coffee. And just as smokers today find great pleasure in this magic combo, Balkaners from 400 years ago also discovered the joys of exchanging a couple of years of your life for that sweet, sweet first cup of joe and smoke. The mass building of coffee houses and their doors being open to anyone regardless of class unintentionally created the perfect infrastructure for tobacco use to spread far and wide throughout the peninsula. Smoking tobacco became so popular, in fact, that across the Balkans, mass cultivation of the plant became a part of the agriculture growth cycle. This only further increased supply and lowered the prices of the stuff, which made tobacco dirt cheap. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, a tobacco pipe became a popular unit of measurement, and when someone wished to say something was cheap, they would say it's not worth a pipe of tobacco. As the Industrial Revolution started to take hold of Europe and spread across the continent, new ways of manufacturing tobacco products emerged. Most notable of these was the late 19th century Bonsack cigarette rolling machine, which allowed for the mass production of cigarettes, which no longer made them a handmade luxury product. Although cigarettes didn't take off in the Balkans until the 20th century, and Balkaners stuck to smoking via their pipes, these new ways of processing allowed for new ways of consumption, such as snorting and snuffing the plant, which in particular became popular in the region, which only skyrocketed the vice's popularity. The cultivation of tobacco continued to grow, especially after the region got independence from the Ottomans. As most of the newly freed countries were mainly agriculture-based economies, growing tobacco as a cash crop became one of the best ways to generate income. Greece, for instance, was able to become one of the top regional exporters of tobacco due to its cultivation in eastern Macedonia and Thrace. After the First and Second World War passed, tobacco consumption and cultivation only continued to grow as pipes were ditched for cigarettes, and the newly established socialist governments took over cultivation directly and even established giant state-owned enterprises like the Yugoslavian Sarajevo Tobacco Factory and the Bulgarian Bulgar Tabak. Under their management, production of tobacco products soared as it was a highly desired crop at home and abroad, and a great way to acquire foreign currency. Okay, but real quick, you've probably wanted to learn a second language, so have I. Several, in fact. And let's just say that the more resources you have for this task, the better. And one of the best resources for this task is none other than Story Learning. Story Learning offers courses in 11 different languages, and in these courses they utilize stories to teach you your desired language. As you read a story, you also go over vocabulary and have the grammar explained to you in simple terms so you can understand. And as someone who has used a variety of different apps, software, and courses throughout the years to learn my languages, this is extremely useful. So if you're someone who's tried a variety of different apps or just don't want to spend hundreds of thousands on private lessons, then Story Learning is for you. Right now, Story Learning is running the 10-day challenge where in 10 days you'll have a quick crash course in your desired language, giving you a perfect head start. Every day you'll be sent a bite-sized lesson to complete for the next 10 days. I've been refreshing my old knowledge of German, and I gotta say, their German teacher is absolutely great and has an amazing voice to listen to. Each language is available in multiple levels, which makes the challenge perfect for all learners regardless of your level. You can also select multiple different languages and their levels. And the best part about it is that it's only $10. So if you want to get started with a new language or get unstuck from the one you're studying right now, then Story Learning's 10-day challenge is for you. So go down to my link in the description and sign up right now. All of this raised tobacco's role in Balkan culture and society to a pretty high level. Hell, it could be even argued that tobacco culture is Balkan culture. According to the World Bank, in 2018, around 39% of Balkaners consumed some sort of tobacco on a regular basis, with Serbs having the highest rate of smokers at 41% on the European continent as a whole, while the rate of an average European country outside of the region was between 20 to 25%. Except for the French, those guys are chiefing it hard. Now, smoking isn't Balkan exclusive whatsoever. The modern practice of using tobacco as we do today came from the West and was wildly popular there for the longest of times. However, smoking rates in that part of the world have been on a gradual decline over the past 2 decades. Starting in the year 2000, around 35.63% of the EU's population smoked, while in 2020, that number fell by nearly 10%, with the rate being 26.43%. However, in the Balkans, the opposite is the case, as the rate barely decreased, and according to some reports, young people are lighting up at larger rates than before, with the habit apparently gaining popularity yet again. Since the 1940s, German scientists drew a link between lung cancer and the use of tobacco. In the 1950s, American scientists further confirmed the finding. As such, since essentially the middle of the previous century, governments and NGOs across the world have pushed for laws and legislation to limit smoking rates and educate the masses on the dangers of tobacco use. The situation within the Balkan countries was no different, as both Serbia and Bosnia implemented tougher legislation relating to tobacco-based products in the 90s. Yet, the smoking rates in these countries barely budged. So why is that? Well, there are several factors that contribute to the reason for consuming this poison. First and foremost, as I've mentioned earlier in this video, tobacco has been a staple in Balkan culture for centuries. As such, the practice of lighting up a cigarette with your morning coffee or whilst chatting to friends is thoroughly integrated into the psyche of Balkaners. A second reason would be stress due to lower quality of life. If we look at a map of wealth distribution and unemployment in Europe, we can see that the Balkans, alongside Eastern Europe as a whole, are much poorer and have higher rates of unemployment than their Western counterparts. With that in mind, smoking a lot of the time is a cope developed by people under stress, as nicotine, a substance found in tobacco, almost immediately relaxes the user after it is consumed and even releases adrenaline, which stimulates the feeling of pleasure in the brain. And when a large chunk of the population is under economic induced stress, it is no wonder why the rates are as high as they are. A third factor, and to an extent more anecdotal but still notable, would be peer pressure. As the habit of tobacco consumption became so widespread and normalized, many young people who are just figuring themselves out and are trying to fit in can be susceptible to picking up smoking due to a large number of their peers doing it and wanting to fit in. Social pressures can be particularly strong, as a popular activity amongst Balkan school kids is to ditch class and light up behind the school. Even if others do not directly pressure one to smoke with them, internal psychological factors can be intense enough to start conforming. Similar phenomena can be observed throughout the world, in particular in the restaurant industry, where cooks and servers will start smoking just to get an additional break and to not be left out from the group of their co-workers. Of course, we must also mention the addiction factor. It's no secret by now that nicotine is highly addictive. After it leaves the body, it craves it again, and these cravings create negative feelings of unease, anxiety, moodiness, and others, which contribute to people lighting up a cigarette again and again. So, where does this all leave us today? Well, in sort of a weird spot. According to public health data from Serbia, it is estimated that the majority of Serb smokers light up their first cigarette between the ages of 13 and 15, and that on average, a teenager in Serbia smokes about half a pack per day. As such, this habit has severely impacted the health of Balkan citizens. When looking at a map of cancer death rates, we can notice that the Balkans have some of the highest on the continent, with Hungary having the highest rate out of all, with about 350 deaths from cancer per 100,000 inhabitants. While when it comes to the deaths due to heart problems, the Balkans yet again lead in Europe, with Hungary also being the champion of heart attacks if we were to take the Baltics and Slovakia out of the equation, which all can be linked to the disproportionately high rates of smoking. Although health experts and officials keep ringing the alarm bells over this, their pleas have more or less fallen on deaf ears. Legislators within the region have been extremely slow with passing laws, so much so that the price of a pack of cigarettes on average costs between 2 to 5 euros, whilst in the UK the price for one is around 18 euros, and in France, a country with high smoking rates in Western Europe, about 11 euros. As such, Big Tobacco has been extremely successful in lobbying the local governments in not going forward with what they see as undesirable legislation. Further contributing to the lack of initiative on tobacco control is that, much like in the 19th century when fledgling Balkan states turned to the tobacco crop to generate desperately needed revenue for the state, the current governments are in a similar situation. In 2019, the local tax revenue collected from the sales of tobacco-related products in Bosnia was 531 million euros, which was practically 3% of the nation's GDP. This is especially problematic, as going even further, it is estimated that cigarette use can be blamed for between 24.4% and 42.8% of all deaths in 2019 in Bosnia. And although the sale of cigarettes provides great revenue to the government, their negative effects are estimated to cost the country between 367 and 635 million euros, or between 2% and 3.5% of their GDP, which at best makes the country's real economic growth from selling these products 1%, and at worst, lowering the nation's wealth by 1.5%. And the situation in the rest of the Balkans isn't that much better. Smoking, and by extent smoking-related diseases, have been a detriment of the Balkan taxpayer, and especially the medical system, which is already underfunded, short-staffed, and majority government-controlled. As such, the impact of tobacco is even greater as a whole, as not only do the users suffer the consequences of their actions, but the whole nation as a whole, as desperately needed money is drained on treating a self-inflicted wound. Although tobacco has been arguably one of the most culturally significant vices on the peninsula and even a saving economic race, as the years have passed, its effects have become a detriment to Balkan society as a whole. The outdated legislation in place is detrimental to the health and lives of millions of people, while the economic benefits of selling the products in their current form and price range are negligible at best. I, much like many of my countrymen, was a smoker for about 2 years total, and as of making this video, I've only quit a couple of months ago. If you are one as well, I implore you to consider doing so as well, and in the end, your body, wallet, and country will thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed my little presentation. If you did, let me know in the comments down below what surprised you the most, or if I missed anything. If you enjoyed this video, click that like and subscribe button, and if you really liked it, become a member like these wonderful people, or check out some of my merch at theIronicShop.com. My name is Janos, and you've watched Living Ironically in Europe.
Hey, why are you leaving?